Life can surprise you in unexpected ways. My name is Emma, and I've lived in the same neighborhood for the past 6 years. It's a quiet, tight knit community in a suburban town where everyone knows each other by name, and we all take turns hosting holiday parties or barbecues. My husband Derek and I are in our mid 30s, and we've always been the couple that's just comfortable. We have 2 kids, a nice house, and a daily routine that, although predictable, is safe and familiar. However, everything changed when Derek's old college friend and our neighbor Jake invited his sister to stay with him. After we moved into the neighborhood, Jake and Derek, who had been close since their college days, naturally spent a lot of time together as families. Although Jake was unmarried and appeared to be happy with his single status, we had heard tidbits throughout the years about his out-of-state younger sister, Ava. We were aware that she had a bit of a free spirit and was constantly on the go. Although I had heard many things about her, I had never met her. One weekend, Jake casually stated that his sister will be staying with him for a few months. I didn't give it much thought. I reasoned that since it was only a visit, nothing significant would change in our day-to-day routine. But I was wrong. Really, really wrong. My carefully crafted universe was thrown into a flurry of unanticipated emotions and happenings with Ava's entrance. One bright afternoon, when Derek was at work and the children were still in school, Ava showed up. She pulled up in front of Jake's house when I was in my garden, taking care of the flowers. As soon as she got out of the car, I realized how different she was from the mental image I had created. She was tall, had long, flowing blonde hair, and exuded a carefree yet fashionable air. She exuded confidence, the type of confidence that makes you sit up and pay attention. She gave me a warm hug and grin, as though we had known each other for years, as I approached to introduce myself. "Hi, you must be Emma. Jake's told me so much about you," she said, her voice warm and inviting. I laughed, shaking her hand. "Yes, and I've heard plenty about you, too. Welcome to the neighborhood." As we chatted for a bit, Ava's charisma was undeniable. She had an easy charm, the kind of person who could strike up a conversation with anyone and make them feel instantly at ease. Over the next few weeks, I began seeing more and more of her. Since Jake was often busy with work, Ava spent a lot of time at our place, helping out with the kids or simply hanging around while Derek and I prepared dinner. She fit seamlessly into our lives, and it wasn't long before I started to feel a connection to her. Something more than just friendship. It was subtle at first, just little moments here and there. We'd laugh a little too much at each other's jokes, and I'd catch her gaze lingering on me a second too long. I brushed it off, thinking I was reading too much into things. But the truth was, I found myself drawn to her in ways I hadn't expected. She was fun, adventurous, and had this magnetic energy that I couldn't quite explain. Derek seemed oblivious to the growing tension between Ava and me. He liked her, of course. Who wouldn't? But he was busy with work and didn't notice the way she and I had started to gravitate toward each other. It felt innocent enough at first, just 2 women becoming fast friends. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a Friday evening, and Jake had gone out for the weekend, leaving Ava to her own devices. Derek had a late meeting, so I invited Ava over for dinner to keep her company. The kids were with my parents for the night, so it was just the 2 of us. We made pasta, opened a bottle of wine, and sat out on the back patio as the sun set, talking about everything and nothing. The conversation flowed easily, and I felt more relaxed with her than I had with anyone in a long time. At some point during the night, the conversation shifted to more personal topics. Ava started opening up about her life, about how she had never really settled down, never stayed in one place for too long. She admitted that she felt a little lost sometimes, like she was constantly searching for something, but didn't know what. "I guess I just don't feel like I belong anywhere," she said, her voice soft as she stared into her glass of wine. I reached over, placing a hand on hers. "I know how that feels," I admitted, surprising even myself with how honest I was being. "I mean, I've lived here for years, but sometimes I wonder if this is it. If this is all there is for me." Ava looked up at me, her eyes full of understanding. "You don't seem lost to me, Emma. You seem grounded." I laughed, shaking my head. "Maybe on the outside, but inside, it's a different story. We sat in silence for a moment, the air between us thick with unspoken words. And then, before I even realized what was happening, Ava leaned in and kissed me. It was a soft, tentative kiss at first, but it quickly deepened. I didn't pull away. In that moment, I didn't want to. It was like all the tension that had been building between us over the past few weeks finally found its release, and I couldn't stop it. Her lips were soft, and I felt a jolt of electricity shoot through me as we kissed, my heart racing in a way it hadn't in years. When we finally pulled apart, both of us were breathless. Ava's eyes searched mine, and I could see the same confusion and desire reflected in them that I felt. "Emma," she whispered, her voice shaky. "I didn't mean to." "It's okay," I interrupted, though my mind was spinning. I wanted it too. We sat there in silence for a moment, the weight of what had just happened settling over us. I knew this was complicated, that we had crossed a line that couldn't easily be uncrossed. But the truth was, I didn't regret it. There was something undeniable between us, something that I hadn't felt in a long time, and I wasn't sure how to handle it. The days that followed were filled with a confusing mix of guilt, excitement, and anticipation. I couldn't stop thinking about the kiss, about how it had felt so right in the moment, yet so wrong afterward. Ava and I tried to act as if nothing had happened, falling back into the routine of casual conversations and friendly hangouts, but the tension between us had shifted. Every time I saw her, I felt that familiar pull, the same magnetic attraction that had led to the kiss in the first place. Derek, still oblivious, carried on with his busy work schedule, and I found myself torn between my life with him and the unexpected connection I had formed with Ava. I knew I couldn't keep this secret forever, but I wasn't ready to let go of whatever this was between Ava and me. It was something I hadn't felt in years, a spark, a sense of being seen and understood in a way that I hadn't experienced with Derek in a long time. One evening, about a week after the kiss, Ava invited me over to Jake's house for a quiet night in. Jake was still out of town, and I knew that being alone with her again might lead to more than just casual conversation. But despite the risks, I went. I told myself that we needed to talk, to clear the air and figure out what this all meant. But deep down, I knew that wasn't the only reason I wanted to see her. When I arrived, Ava greeted me with a nervous smile. She was dressed casually, but there was something different about the way she carried herself, as if she, too, was unsure of where things were heading. We sat down on the couch, wine in hand, and for a while, it felt like we were just two friends again, talking about nothing in particular. But as the night went on, the conversation inevitably drifted back to what had happened between us. "About the other night," Ava started, her voice hesitant. "I've been thinking about it a lot." "Me too," I admitted, my heart racing as I waited for her to continue. She set her wine glass down, turning to face me fully. "I don't know what this is, Emma. I didn't mean for any of this to happen, but I can't stop thinking about you. About us." Her words hit me hard, and I felt my pulse quicken. I didn't know what to say. I had been wrestling with the same feelings, the same confusion, but hearing her say it out loud made it all the more real. "I feel the same way," I finally admitted, my voice barely a whisper. "But we can't keep doing this. It's not fair to Derek, and I don't want to hurt him." "I know," Ava said, her expression pained. "But I can't pretend like I don't feel this. I don't want to ignore it." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of our words hanging between us. I knew we were at a crossroads, that we needed to make a decision before things spiraled even further out of control. But the pull between us was undeniable, and I wasn't sure I had the strength to walk away. Without saying anything, Ava reached out and took my hand, her touch sending a familiar jolt of electricity through me. I looked into her eyes, and in that moment, I knew that whatever happened next, there was no going back. I leaned in, and this time, the kiss was immediate, full of pent-up emotion and desire. It wasn't tentative like the first time. This was something more intense, something that had been building between us for weeks. As we kissed, everything else seemed to fade away. The guilt, the confusion, the consequences. All I could think about was her, the way she made me feel, the rush of excitement and danger that came with every touch. It was like nothing I had ever experienced before, and I couldn't stop myself from wanting more. But as quickly as it began, reality crashed down around me. I pulled away, my heart racing, and stood up abruptly, trying to catch my breath. "We can't do this," I said, my voice shaky. "It's not right." Ava stood too, her expression torn. "I know, Emma, but what are we supposed to do? Pretend this isn't happening?" "I don't know," I admitted, tears welling up in my eyes. "But we have to stop. We can't keep crossing this line." She nodded, but I could see the same conflict in her eyes that I felt in my own heart. We were both trapped in this impossible situation, drawn to each other but bound by the commitments we had to other people. It was a mess, and I didn't know how to fix it. Over the next few weeks, Ava and I did our best to keep our distance. We saw each other in passing, exchanged polite greetings, but avoided spending any real time together. It was excruciating. Every time I saw her, my heart would race, and I'd feel that same pull, the same desire to be close to her. But I knew that giving in to those feelings would only make things worse. Meanwhile, my relationship with Derek began to feel strained. I couldn't shake the guilt I felt for what had happened with Ava, and it was affecting everything: our conversations, our intimacy, the way I looked at him. I tried to act normal, to go through the motions of our everyday life, but it was getting harder to keep up the facade. One evening, as we sat at the dinner table in silence, Derek finally broke the tension. "Emma, is everything okay? You've been distant lately." I froze, my mind racing as I tried to come up with an explanation. I couldn't tell him the truth, couldn't admit what had happened between Ava and me. So I did what I had always done. I brushed it off. "I'm fine," I lied, forcing a smile. "Just stressed, I guess. Work's been busy." Derek didn't seem convinced, but he let it go, and I felt a pang of guilt for deceiving him yet again. I knew I couldn't keep this up forever, but I wasn't ready to face the consequences of my actions. As the weeks turned into months, Ava and I continued to avoid each other, though the tension between us never fully dissipated. I missed her, missed the connection we had shared, the way she made me feel alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. But I knew that being around her was too dangerous, that it would only lead to more complications. Then, one day, everything came to a head. It was a warm summer afternoon, and I was out in the garden, pulling weeds and trying to keep my mind off of everything. Derek had taken the kids to the park, and I was grateful for the solitude. But then I heard footsteps approaching, and I looked up to see Ava standing at the edge of the yard, her expression conflicted. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice soft but serious. I hesitated for a moment before nodding. "Yeah, I guess we need to." Ava walked over, and we sat down on the back steps of the house, the tension between us palpable. For a few moments, neither of us said anything. Then Ava broke the silence. "I'm leaving," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm going back home. I can't stay here anymore. It's too hard." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut, and I felt a mix of relief and sadness wash over me. "You're leaving?" I repeated, struggling to process what she was saying. She nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I can't keep doing this, Emma. I can't stay here and pretend like everything's fine when it's not. It's not fair to Jake or to you or to me." I swallowed hard, trying to keep my emotions in check. "I get it. I understand." For a long moment, we sat there in silence, the weight of our unspoken feelings hanging heavy in the air. I knew this was the right decision, that Ava leaving was the only way to break free from the mess we had created, but it didn't make it any easier. "I'm going to miss you," Ava said finally, her voice thick with emotion. "I'm going to miss you too," I whispered, my heart aching with the weight of everything we had left unsaid. We sat there for a while longer, neither of us wanting to say goodbye but knowing that we had to. Finally, Ava stood up, wiping the tears from her eyes. "Take care of yourself, Emma," she said, her voice soft but sincere. "You too," I replied, my voice barely audible. And with that, she walked away, leaving me alone with my thoughts, my guilt, and the memories of what could have been. In the weeks that followed, life slowly returned to normal, though the emptiness left by Ava's departure lingered. I focused on my family, on repairing the cracks in my marriage and trying to move forward. Derek never suspected a thing, and for that I was grateful. But there were still moments, quiet moments, when I thought of Ava, when I wondered if she was thinking of me too. Looking back, I realized how easily things could have gone differently, how one more touch, one more moment could have changed everything. But in the end, I chose my family. I chose the life I had built with Derek. And while it wasn't perfect, it was mine. And as time went on, the memories of Ava faded, replaced by new ones, new experiences, new joys. But a part of me would always remember her, the way she made me feel, the choices we almost made, and the life that could have been. Because sometimes, the hardest choices are the ones you make in silence, in the quiet spaces where no one else is watching. And those are the choices that define who you are and what you hold most dear. As the weeks turned into months, the memory of Ava became a bittersweet echo in my mind, one that I had learned to live with. The pain of her departure dulled over time, and I found myself getting back into the rhythm of everyday life. Derek and I began spending more time together. Weekend trips, family dinners, and quiet evenings where we actually talked instead of just coexisting in the same space. It wasn't perfect, but we were making an effort, and for the first time in a long time, it felt like we were reconnecting. But even as things improved with Derek, I couldn't completely shake the memory of what had happened with Ava. It wasn't just about the kiss or the tension between us. It was about how I had let myself drift so far from the person I thought I was. I had always believed in loyalty, in the idea that marriage was built on trust and fidelity. And yet I had let myself be tempted by something or someone outside of that commitment. It was a sobering realization, and one that forced me to take a long, hard look at my marriage and my life. I began to see the cracks that had formed over the years, the distance between Derek and me, the unspoken resentments, the lack of real communication. And while Ava had been a symptom of those problems, she wasn't the cause. The truth was, Derek and I had been drifting apart long before Ava entered the picture. And if I wanted to truly move forward, I had to face that reality head-on. One evening, after the kids had gone to bed and we were sitting together on the couch, I decided it was time to have a conversation that I had been avoiding for far too long. "Derek," I began, my heart pounding in my chest. "Can we talk?" He looked up from his phone, surprised by the seriousness in my tone. "Sure, what's on your mind?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what I knew was going to be a difficult conversation. "I've been thinking a lot about us lately, about our marriage." His brow furrowed, and I could see the concern flicker in his eyes. "What do you mean?" "I mean that I feel like we've been distant for a while now," I said carefully, choosing my words with caution. "I don't know exactly when it started, but it feels like we've been going through the motions, just existing together instead of really being together." Derek was silent for a moment, his expression unreadable. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, almost hesitant. "I guess I've felt that too," he admitted, "but I didn't know how to bring it up. I thought maybe it was just a phase, that things would get better on their own." "I did too," I said, feeling a wave of relief that he wasn't brushing off my concerns. "But I think we need to talk about it, to figure out what's really going on, because I don't want to keep living like this, Derek. I want us to be better, to really work on our marriage." He nodded, his expression thoughtful. "I do too. I've been so focused on work, on providing for the family, that I didn't realize how much I was neglecting us. I'm sorry, Emma. I should have been more present, more involved." "I'm not blaming you," I said softly. "I know we've both been busy, and life gets in the way sometimes, but I think we both need to make more of an effort if we want to fix this." For the first time in a long time, it felt like we were on the same page. We spent the rest of the evening talking, really talking, about our marriage, our goals, our frustrations. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when the conversation got heated, when old wounds were reopened and long-buried resentments came to the surface. But by the end of the night, I felt a sense of relief, like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Derek and I weren't perfect, and we still had a lot of work to do. But for the first time in a long time, I felt hopeful. We were finally confronting the issues that had been simmering beneath the surface for years, and while it was painful, it was also necessary. In the months that followed, Derek and I made a conscious effort to prioritize our relationship. We went to couples therapy, something I had never imagined us doing, but it turned out to be one of the best decisions we could have made. Through therapy, We learned how to communicate more effectively, how to express our needs and frustrations without resorting to blame or defensiveness. We also started spending more quality time together. Date nights, weekend getaways, and even just small moments of connection throughout the day. It wasn't always easy, and there were still times when we fell back into old patterns. But we were trying, and that made all the difference. As my relationship with Derek improved, the memories of Ava slowly began to fade. I no longer felt the same pang of guilt or longing when I thought about her. Instead, I saw her as a turning point, a catalyst that had forced me to confront the cracks in my marriage and make the changes that were necessary to move forward. And while I would always remember what had happened between us, I no longer felt trapped by it. I had made my choice, and I had chosen my family. It wasn't the easy choice, but it was the right one. One afternoon, about a year after Ava had left, I received a message from her out of the blue. "Hey Emma, I hope you're doing well. I've been thinking about you lately and wanted to check in. Would love to catch up if you're open to it." I pondered how to reply for a while, my heart pounding as I looked at the message. A part of me wanted to know how Ava was doing because it had been so long since we had spoken. The part of me that had put so much effort into starting over with Derek, however, was apprehensive. Ultimately, I chose to reply. "Hi Ava, I appreciate hearing from you. I appreciate you asking. I've been doing great. I'd be willing to get together sometime." A few days later, we set up a coffee date, and I experienced a weird mixture of anxiety and longing as I entered the cafe where we had decided to meet. When I saw Ava sitting at a table near the window, a warm smile on her face, I felt a rush of emotions, fondness, regret, and something else I couldn't quite place. "Emma," she said as she got up to embrace me, "it's great to see you." "You too," I said with a smile as I took a seat across from her. We talked about our lives, our families, and everything that had transpired since she departed for the next hour while we caught up. Sitting there with her and knowing what we had gone through was odd, yet it also felt normal. It was just two longtime friends getting back in touch. There was no tension or unresolved feelings. Ava gave me a gentle, understanding grin as we finished our coffee and got ready to say our goodbyes. I said, experiencing a twinge of melancholy, "I've missed you too." "Indeed, everything has been going well. I'm content." "I'm delighted for you," she responded earnestly. "I am," I said. We shared a final embrace before we left, and I felt a sense of closure as I left the cafe that I hadn't known I needed. Everything had come full circle when I saw Ava again, and I realized that I had finally moved on. I had made up my mind, and I had decided on the life that was most important to me. And I knew I had at last achieved peace as I made my way home to Derek and the children.